and with their wider communities in school, in work, with our colleagues, and the institutions that we all have to work with. So my presentation will try and give you ideas on how to do those things as well as possible. So there'll be a PDF for you at the end of this one that Fergus will have for you. So let's start off there. Okay, now let's get going. Firstly, let's talk about the kinds of materials that we have available to us. Typically, we all have different published materials. The published materials what we'll be using will be course books, ones that are on the shelves in your teachers' staff rooms, ones perhaps on your shelves at home. We go through them, we try to find ideas, and we try to then adapt and resource those ones. Okay, give you a few ideas on those things. What are the advantages? Obviously, when you're choosing a course book, firstly, and the key bit is that it gives you a progression. You're trying to frame language for your students and put it into a context particular for beginners where they can see and make clear progress through different stages. So the Council of Europe framework will be one of the points that we will look at. So when we're talking about an A1 student progressing through to Bs and so forth. We know the material that has been chosen is professionally put together. It should engage and the topics should all be relevant to general kinds of students that they're providing for. The supplementary materials and the support structures that they've spent huge amounts of money on will provide support for you as a teacher. And the teacher's book then can be a great resource for you to be able to work out what you're going to teach, look at some of the difficulties that your students will have with the language that's coming through and suggest areas and different ways to engage with that. Okay, those will be your key points there. If you, however, look at the disadvantages, we all know that course books have limitations. The types of students, particularly in literacy, isn't necessarily reflected in the Headway series or many other series that we've tended to see there. So the needs and the interests of our students will be key to the choices of materials that we're going to use. The other point there is that the EFL general language student may be working in their own home environment with course books, with a non-native speaker teacher, whereas the students that we engage with are working with us in a language environment which is purely through English, and they struggle to work with literacy. Sorry, I see a spelling mistake there. Okay. The key aspect for you as a teacher is that you create language situations for your students, and the texts and activities might be for a very different community of learners. So what do? We try to make the best use of the course books that are available to you, and we have a set of criteria that will help us to maintain that. Firstly, you are the teacher. You have a skill set that will help you to engage the students with the courses you want to provide. Choosing the course book and choosing parts of course books will be your skill. So what do? You want to engage them into the topics, and with the topics, be it, for example, describing your home, talking about your family, we want to encourage our students to give their experiences, to give their opinions on these things. How can we then choose materials from a course book that is assigned or set or that we want to use, but can we bring in our own materials? Can we choose something from our own context and the students' context that will make it relevant to them? And above all, be critical. The course book provides a framework. It doesn't necessarily provide the structure that you want to use with your students there. So other things we can choose are supplementary materials and other activities that we will bring into our classroom situations. So these obviously will provide the additional practice that the students will need to engage with. The classroom material or the course material may not be sufficient to allow the students to use, remember, and recycle the language. The supplementary material will build on that and give them the additional practice you need with them. So they will be necessarily and can be more engaging, and the variety will help to break up what is often a monotonous type of classroom or a monotonous type of course book. In that, a lot of our students then, the profile is very mixed in sense that we would talk about a spiky profile in terms of how the students can use language, how well they can remember it, how well they can write it, how well they can listen to it. So you will need to talk about and think about differentiating different types of tasks for your different type of mixed ability classes. So with lower literacy students, they will be encouraged to provide and use the material in a particular way. Students with a stronger literacy one can be encouraged to engage perhaps in responding to the text, writing it something to show and engage with it fully. Okay, the types of materials. What have we got? Firstly, one area that we do encourage our students to use are graded readers. So these are books that the publishers have provided that grade language to certain key numbers of words. So at a low level, it might be a maximum of 400 words. For a B1 student, it will go up to 12 to 1500 words. So it provides the students an opportunity to read stories, be they ones that are classic stories or something that will engage with them, but allow them to use the language, understand the language, and possibly respond to it in some way. The websites that we use obviously give the students that additional practice, whether it's in our resource rooms. So in other words, we might engage with them and have the students sit down and work through websites with us, where we will show them how to respond, how to listen, how to engage with it, or else we might provide them instruction on how to use it from home. This would be obviously the thing that we do most. We prepare materials, we photocopy texts, we photocopy questions and questionnaires because we find them very relevant. The key things there might be is that, do we have the copyright license that will allow us to use that, and is in fact providing that sheer volume of paper material, does it create perhaps too much for the students? Do they know how to order it, how to use it, how to recycle it in terms of going back over that? So those are the things to bear in mind for that. And lastly, your websites, the ones to provide the teacher ways to develop classes, work on making lesson plans. Ones like One Stop English, which will provide a very clear framework for you as a teacher to develop and use in your classroom setting. Okay, things for you to consider. So as a language teacher working with literacy students, you've got to work out what are the things that you need to be able to do with your classes. So first of all, the materials that you're going to use, how much preparation is it needed by you in order to work through it in the classroom? How do you have to manage the material? For example, are you going to be using it as individuals? Do they read something and respond to it individually? Do they have a paired completion task where perhaps one student reads one part of a text, the other student, student A, might have a second part of a text, and they have to exchange information to each other. Okay, those would be things to think about in terms of, do I need additional materials, additional photocopies, who gets what, and for how long? The question there in terms of setting up is, how long do I have in the classroom situation I've chosen to use this particular set of materials? If I'm going to use a role play, how much information do I need to provide to each student? How am I going to provide it? And then what period of time is needed to give the instructions, practice, and perhaps record in some way with your students. The instructions then you're going to need will be, how am I going to break down my instructions? And obviously then, how I'm going to be able to check that each student understands what they have to do. The outcomes for the students, what will they achieve by using this set of material that I brought into the class? How will it benefit them? How will they then use that for themselves in another situation? And lastly, the cultural aspect there. Is it appropriate for the groups that I'm going to be teaching to use situations that they may not be familiar with, may not be comfortable with, or may not quite fully understand or engage with? So if those are things that you've been considering in terms of materials, then possibly how can you teach better without using published materials, without using supplementary photocopies? Things that here to consider for you would be the learner. You provide them with the opportunities to talk and participate with each other in a classroom environment. That's where their learning can take place. And in those situations, you can help them to talk about their own lives, what they do, how they live in Galway, in Dublin, in their own environment, will be just as relevant to what they need to be able to carry out. As they do it, their ideas will come out. With their ideas, you've got to think about, how can I help my students to explain their ideas better, with better English, and in a structure that will suit the type of language they need to carry out. That's your skill. So your skill is to encourage them, to acknowledge the work that they're doing in the class, to show them that you can understand them, but also you need to be able to help them to use the language in a better and clearer way. It could be the sounds aren't clear, the individual sounds. It could also be the word stress, but more often it could be word order or poor language grammatical choice. You provide and help your students by repeating, reformulating to show how they could say that same language item in a clearer way. There, you're now into helping them to repeat and correct it. So by giving and modeling a correcting form, they will now be able to remember and use the language better themselves. And finally, they need to make a record with you of what the new language that they've learned in the class. So in all of these things, you're helping to correct the students. Your role there is to correct and to assist the students in using the language correctly again and again. Okay, so it's correction and assistance, not in any way to show the students that they're using the language very, very poorly. You provide a model, they're coming to you, they want your teacher skill. So be sensitive. All right, so from that point, let's now look at the type of things you're going to be using within your classroom. So we're going from classes that have had very little technology, just talk and chalk, and we've all progressed and are moving through stages now where The technology is allowing you to show what you need to show to your students in many and different ways. You still will be playing audio recordings. You may be showing more video that is streamed into the classroom setting. How and in what devices you move through from simply just the overhead projector and now into the interactive whiteboard. So what these items will allow you to is engage your students more fully in a learning experience. The technology is there in a sense to assist their interactiveness and to appeal to in a sense of a wider uh, senses. It gives them a greater opportunity to provide and remember language clearly. So the mobile devices you can use also, where the students can prepare to present items about their own lives, about their families, about schools, about their work, and through various things like a keynote or a PowerPoint, very simple aspects. And the iPad would have a lot of applications where the students can upload and engage with you more fully. Okay, in terms then of the individual working on their own, we'd obviously be thinking about a mobile learning aspect. So the applications that you use with your students will encourage them to become more autonomous in how they learn through perhaps a, a dictionary. Other ones will be do with sounds. So for example, Macmillan Sounds helps them with their pronunciation. But you're providing the students with a sense of how can they learn more effectively outside the classroom to support the type of learning they need to do. You can engage them in networking sites, and this will help them to work with their classroom settings, but also in the wider communities as well. Web quests can be a very good way to get the students to do research into topics, for example, on Irish cultural aspects, on Irish historical aspects, where you can guide them to perform a series of tasks and research an item very easily. Okay, now what we're now engaged in are a virtual learning environment, and these are learning platforms. So we've all now taken part in VLEs and online learning platforms, virtual learning environments. We may not have had to do it so much pre-February or pre-March, but we're certainly more engaged in it now. So we need to think about how can we also encourage our students to take part in learning with us, but in a new way. So we can use various things like a Moodle or a Blackboard, and this will allow teachers to engage with the learners, and they can then engage with each other and support each other. We're doing assignments with them. We may be grading a language that they've sent to us. We can provide discussion boards that will allow you as the tutor to help students stay engaged with what we need them to do. Blended learning obviously is where we're all involved in providing some materials, be it a course book, be it photocopies, and then expanded with additional resources that we link for our students. So we can support our students in the classroom or in the virtual classroom, and then provide them with additional resources where we can link those items together to them. Okay, Zoom is another one that we've maybe using for games or engaging with our families, but it is in fact a very good way to perform a class-based learning environment. So, what kind of resources are we thinking about? Our own ETBs, if we're working within the system, obviously use a shared learning resource system. So teachers linking together on OneDrives, sharing resources and putting and engaging with each other. Nala, the one who's been supporting us today, they have their own set of materials, both video, printed, and so forth for our learners. We can use other organizations like, say, like Teach English, that they will provide multiple levels of materials for us. And again, it comes back to having a framework like the CEF4 that will show us what resources are linked to which level of students we're working with. Okay, ESOL Materials Ireland is another very substantive site now where teachers have been engaged and uploading materials to share with each other. EN Abilities is a DCU one that they've been involved in, and I know that some of us have had to respond to it and evaluate it and to see how appropriate it is for learners, and that went out roughly about a month ago. Nexus, the very large learning platform, UK based, huge variety of materials for both the teacher to be able to resource it, also gives lots of background materials and gives lots of different skills areas that our students will work towards. I've just chosen one particular course book and student site that is very comprehensive. Again, it will need certainly a lot of editing on your behalf to make it work effectively, but it shows how a very professional publisher and the kinds of resources that they've put into for learners. Okay, and finally, your role again as a teacher, it's coming down to your skill set. What you're trying to work on effectively is how can I collect materials that I can use with my students? How can I collate and organize them well so that I can be able to find them, use them, amend them as needs be, rather than simply trying to create new resources with my classes for each time. There is a huge amount of material out there. It's a matter of linking them with other teachers, use the resources that are available for you, and show how your skills as teachers can be used effectively for that. So I'm going to allow you to do some questions and answers, and finally just a simple set of references that I've used for some of the images there. So thank you all very much for listening.
Thanks very much, Pascall. That was great.
Okay.
So many ideas, so many tips how to work with a mixed level classroom, and plenty of resources. So there's bound to be some things there that everyone can use and enjoy and try out.
Good. Let's see. So okay.
Great.
So now, sorry, Fergus, you go work ahead.
Or do you want to say something else there, Pascall? Go on. Okay, so
no,
I'll start reading out the questions, Pascall. Some people have
absolutely
typed in some questions, so I'll just read those out. And if anyone wants to put in further questions, just so you know, the questions are in the toolbar on the right hand side. If you can't see your toolbar, press on the orange box with the white arrow in it. It opens it out, and scroll down to questions, and then across from the questions on the right of your screen, there's a box with an arrow pointing upwards. Press on that and it opens up the questions box into the middle of your screen. So the first question I have here, Pascall, is from Marisa, and she's saying, do you recommend a good course book for beginners? I'm using New Headways.
Yeah, Marisa, the Headway series I find is very well organized, very well structured, but it's not necessarily one that you would use perhaps with literacy students. I'm not sure what your environment is there, Marisa. If you're using a course book, actually one you might think about using is called English for Life. It's a very well structured one for low learners. It has a single page per lesson, lots of dialogues, lots of opportunities for students to practice language in a very closed environment, shall we say. So I find that's been particularly good for new learners who need very controlled language with very set parameters. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Pascal. Siobhan has asked, would you be able to provide a list of websites and resources suitable for beginners?
Siobhan, of course. I've just made a couple of reference points there for you. Um, in fact, in the publication with NALA before Christmas, I made another list there. So perhaps we could make a link to that as well.
Okay, literacy
And
matters, yeah.
excuse me, on literacy matters. So
Yeah,
there'll be a couple of more links there as well for you
yeah,
to resources. But as I said, the Irish website ESOL Materials is they have lots of good materials there for you.
great. So
Okay,
ESOL
Siobhan?
materials, and as I said, Pascal's going to send his presentation to me after this, and I'll
Of
send it
course.
to everyone registered for today, so you'll be able to look through what Pascal talked about. Pascal, Mary Lynch is asking, what's your opinion on WhatsApp learning?
Um, it's again, Mary. I mean, we use various platforms in order to share with students. Various ones have a very strong literacy aspect. Other ones can be done more as a video conference aspect. So WhatsApp is a fairly flexible resource in that one, but I'm not sure if it's strong enough to provide support if you want to do additional materials, how big it is in terms of, if you want to use it on a laptop or so forth, because we all think of WhatsApp as simply a mobile platform for your phone. So we often use it to exchange information, to put links perhaps for students to additional supports, but you may need a larger framework like perhaps a Zoom or a Moodle that will allow a whole series of things to come together. So those are the kind of things I would think about with using WhatsApp, Mary.
Okay, thanks. Pascal, Monica has sent in a question. I came across a reading and learning platform in the US for primary and secondary school pupils called EPIC. So it's all capitals, EPIC, EPIC.
I see.
Is
Okay.
there something similar for ESOL low-level students?
Well, on that one, Monica, I don't know the Epic website in that one, but a lot of the kinds of resources that we would have, I would say, Monica, you may find that the ESOL Nexus, NEXUS, will provide a whole series of things. And what I find particularly about that one, it allows you to do the background aspect, not simply the material, but it explains more fully the kinds of students that we tend to work with in literacy and their needs. So there also would be, I imagine, through primary teachers here, they would have also sharing aspects on their own sites. But I'll think and look for some of those ones as well. Okay, Monica?
Yeah, there might be something on the TUSLA homeschool community liaison teachers
I would
site.
expect
I
so.
haven't
Yes.
haven't looked, but some of those teachers support students who might have language issues as well as literacy. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, Karen has asked, what interactive websites do you use for beginners?
In terms of interactive, Karen, I suppose you're thinking about where the students have to respond to certain tasks. So, for example, they might hear a dialogue and they may have to answer a question. Is John married, or does he want to buy something? So that could be the kind of engagement you're thinking about, or where they may have to type an answer or complete a lozenge box or something like that. So a lot of the bigger ones I mentioned, for example, Headway would have a lot of frameworks like that, and they can be adapted fairly easily to different situations for you. Other ones you might think about as a resource would be able for you to provide a linked dictionary so the students can hear sounds as well. So hopefully, Karen, that could be a resource for you.
Okay, thanks. The next two questions, Pascal, overlap, so I'll just give it from Suzanne and
Okay.
Mary. They're asking about graded readers, examples of graded readers for low level ESOL adult learners? Any ideas there?
Sure. Graded readers, again, are shorter published books by the main publishers. OUP would have a huge series of those ones. And these particular ones for the lower literacy and the lower level students at A1, they would generally be roughly about 30 to 40 pages long. The text is being heavily graded, and also they would have lots of links on their websites for the students to listen to the text and also to respond to the text. So they would generally have, you should be able to go on to the publisher's main websites to see what's available and to see what resources there are for the teacher to use around those ones. Okay,
Okay,
so
thanks.
hopefully Susanna and Mary, that can give you some ideas.
Thank you. Pascal, the next comment from Ellen says, this has been absolutely fantastic. You've answered so many questions that I've had. I know this is not a question, but I had to express my gratitude. So thanks, Ellen.
It's very kind.
Siobhan saying, can you get English for Life online?
Siobhan, there are resources online. Okay, so what I would suggest you do is look at the textbook itself, so you can see it from the main publisher sites. I believe it's at 4 different levels at the moment. So the beginners, there's elementary, there's a pre-inter, inter, so on. But the format I found works really well at low levels. They tend to have very appropriate types of materials, describing your home, uh, going to the pharmacy, giving directions and so forth. And the language is very well structured. So the students have an opportunity to practice, but they don't tend to get confused over the peripheral language that may be on the additional sites. So it does have an excellent support online, but I'm not sure if the book itself is simply downloadable or used online. Okay.
Thanks, Pascal. Pascal, have you another little few minutes because there's more questions coming in?
Do. Absolutely. The sun's
Great.
shining.
Thanks a million. Okay,
No
so
poetry.
Orla O'Grady's asking, yeah, is this being recorded and posted to the website so I can view it again? Lots of information to take in. Would be great to watch again. Yes, Orla, we'll send you Pascal's presentation and we are recording this and it will be put on the NALA website, but it might take a few days because we're still getting there on some aspects of the technology. Sinead saying, hi Pascal, can you recommend books for teaching phonics? I've been using the Laubach series, but are there others? Thanks.
Okay, in terms then of working with pronunciation, Sinead, rather than simply phonics, just the broader spectrum there. The, the series that you've mentioned have been particularly good, but I'd also think about using the wider ESOL type of help with pronunciation. I mentioned to you one application that your students can download onto their phones, and it's simply one called Macmillan Sounds. And that's a free application for your students. BBC English also has a particularly good series of pronunciation for sounds for learners as well. And that would work with the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet. Okay, so hopefully, Sinead, you can work on those too.
Okay, thanks, Pascal. Richard's asking, I'm a bit nervous about doing an online lesson with beginners, especially if there's some misunderstandings in read technology, etc. Any tips?
Yeah, that's for all of us, Richard. I think that's one area that we're all very hesitant on. We're all very confident in the classroom, but we're less confident with what we call a disembodied voice. In other words, when you're a remote teacher trying to work with students who may not be familiar with the technology that you're trying to deal with them. So, Richard, generally the thing would be is to provide very simple tasks at the beginning where the students can acknowledge that they're engaging with you, create simple dialogues, and then try and provide some form of support with them, either through a text that they can see or that they can download and respond to you in those ways. But often this type of remote learning for literacy students is a great challenge. So we'll just try and link things for them.
Okay, thanks, Pascal. And Monica's saying this platform allows teachers to see how much students are engaging with reading materials. I'm not sure which platform Monica is referring to. If you want to type in, Monica, later on what platform you're referring to there, maybe other people are clear what you're referring to. Okay, Mary is asking, could you recommend a book for a beginner ESOL book, please?
Okay, I answered a few of those ones now, Mary, in
Yeah.
those ones. Again, think about looking, if you're dealing with low literacy students, NALA's own published materials is very effective on those ones. If you're looking at more general language students who are at a very low level, engage with the materials such as the English for Life series, or look at through English ESOL Nexus, so forth. They would have a lot of good materials there for you. So Mary, go with those ones to start with.
Okay, thanks. Kira is making a comment. I liked your point about materials being mostly suited to EFL as opposed to ESOL students. It's really a major gap downfall and a disservice to our students.
Yeah, it's obviously, Kira, it's a financial aspect. Um, ESOL literacy students aren't investing in their own materials. The teachers are investing in the materials for them by, providing resources, choosing materials, and photocopying, unfortunately. So what the big publishers have for us is they've created a framework around a particular referencing system that we need as well, and then allows us, with our own teaching skills, to amend the materials for them. There are lots of materials and resources, but they're not necessarily focused on the type of students we know that we've got to deal with. So they may be in pounds, they may be with going on foreign holidays, and they're not the situations that our students need to engage in. So actually just one point there, Fergus, and it came up on,
Yeah.
you sent a link to us all last week, the Phoenix FM. That was a
Yes.
wonderful resource looking at how students live their lives, who are the people they engage with in the schools and in the communities, and that provides a lovely framework for learners. So that was a lovely resource to get.
Yeah, if anyone, I sent that to some people who logged into a particular webinar last week. If anyone wants that, just send me an email and I'll send that to you. I just want to read out a tip from Kathy Orr and Bray. So I think she's getting back to what a few people have asked for. She's talking about a website called Global Access, and I hope you can all see it in the questions box. It's Kathy Orr, Global Access, Bow Valley, BOW Valley College.ca, which is California, /learners/readers, PHP for beginners one sentence per page. So that sounds like that could be good for beginners learners. So if anyone can't get that, you can email me later, but it's in the questions box from Kathy Orr. So thanks, Kathy. Siobhan O'Brien is asking, is that called OUP? I'm not sure. Yeah, is
Yes.
it?
So Siobhan, yeah, it's Oxford University Press would be one of the big publishers. OUP. Also people like Macmillan would be another one of the large publishers. So they would have a very good learning resources for students to link in. And you as a teacher then can guide your students on how to use the resources. They have actually some excellent video resources as well, which will give you class materials as well to use with your classes.
Okay, sorry, Ellen has a comment here in relation to phonics. So about low-level graded readers, I found an excellent resource that is available on PDF platform called the Drop-In series. So it's called the Drop-In series. You can see that in Ellen's in the questions box, and she also then has a phonics thing, www.forwardwithphonics.com /resources.
Excellent.
So that's
With
forwardwithphonics.com.
phonics.
Yeah,
Got it.
forwardwithphonics.com/resources. So that is in the questions box there from Ellen Dillon. Thanks, Ellen. Okay,
Thanks,
we're
Alan.
nearly there. I'm just scrolling down to see other questions. Marisa saying, could you repeat the name of the publisher for the graded readers, please?
Okay. OUP will be one series. Macmillan would have an
OUP,
OUP,
Open
sorry, yeah.
University Press.
No, Oxford University Press.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
OUP.
So IOP, I'm just looking, do I have one to hand? If you want to wait a moment, shall I grab one or two?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll read out the
Yep,
next question,
take
and if
care.
anyone, yeah. For the people looking for graded readers, there are some beginner level graded readers to be found online, YouTube, where students can listen and read. Graded readers can be hard to buy, so they're very useful for my students. So go into YouTube and Google beginner level graders or beginner level graded readers. So Josephine, thanks very much for that. It works for Josephine and her students, so maybe people could try that. A few people saying positive things like Mary Lynch and brilliant presentation. So thanks, Pascall. He can't hear me. We can say terrible things about him now, actually, that he's gone. Mary O'Brien saying thank you. I found both today and yesterday very informative. Regards, Mary. Thanks, Mary. Lydia Fox says thanks very much, Pascall. Very empowering. Great. Siobhan, we're all saying all the positive stuff about Pascall when he's gone. Siobhan saying great info, Pascall. Can we get a list and a link to all the resources? So Siobhan, we will send on Pascall's presentation to everyone who's registered for this. Maureen, thanks for this. The English for Life books are available online. They're on the OUP site. Marisa, can you see that? So it's Maureen Gillespie's comment. The English for Life books are available online. They're on the OUP site. Hi, Pascall.
Sorry, I'm back in.
Yeah.
Oh, perhaps this way around. Any better?
We can hear you, but not as clearly as we could hear you a few minutes ago.
Sorry, guys, wrong
Yeah.
headset. So
Yeah.
I've just picked up two to show you. If you can make it out here, this is a Penguin copy, Penguin readers. And what it shows on the back of it, it shows the grading system that they're using to show what level the students you would expect them to be and how many words are going to be used there. Okay, so that might give you some indication. These are Penguin readers, but Oxford, Macmillan, they all publish various ones like that. They should be available for you to borrow as well in your local library.
Okay, Pascall, a few comments came in saying
Oh, sorry,
stuff
go on,
like,
Ellen.
brilliant presentation, Pascall, thanks so much. So a lot of comments like that came in. I'm just going to fly through because we really have to wrap up in about 2 minutes.
Sure, of
Maureen
course.
Gillespie saying the English for Life books are available online. They're on the OUP site. Laura
Excellent.
O'Sullivan saying
Thanks, Maureen.
Diglin, Diglin, Diglin for phonics and ESOL literacy is worth looking at. So that's Diglin. You can see it in Laura
G-L-I-N, got it.
O'Sullivan's Diglin, Laura O'Sullivan's question box there. Richard saying
Thanks,
great
Laura.
help. Thanks, Pascall. Eileen saying my learners cannot access online sports. Oh, gee, I'm sending worksheets by mail. Any suggestions as to how I can get them to practice at home, speaking, using tenses, etc.? That's Eileen Norris.
Eileen. So Eileen, on those ones, when we're thinking about getting students to use language on their own, there'll be two things. One will be how much language can they use on their mobile phone? So open, what applications can you recommend for them to practice language? So for example, Macmillan Sounds will help them with pronunciation. And a lot of the big publishers, again, have videos and websites that they can use with their mobile phones as well. So you can direct them to the kinds of resources you're using, but then also suggest different areas that they should be looking at. Another thing they maybe think you should think about them using are dictionaries that would be monolingual, so particularly ones at low level learners. They can be used very effectively there as well.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks, Pascal. Monica, thanks for your tip here. Monica saying EPIC, so that's EPIC, all capitals, EPIC,
Yes.
has a remote student
EPSE.
access toolkit where teachers can see how much
Oh,
students are engaging with reading. EPIC is a digital library, and there's a big long link for it there. But if you go to EPIC Digital Library, I'm sure you can get it. It's in Monica Bottrell's question box. Let me see. I'm really going to scan just to pick out questions there because we're really going to have to wrap it up. Here's a good short video in relation to why course books are good for us as a framework, but when we use them and when we design our own material, when we get more confident. It's youtube.com watch. If you see that there from Ellen Dillon, you can use that link if you want.
well, yeah.
Are these online Penguin readers? Somebody saying, Susanna, saying Penguin readers. So Monica saying, thanks very much, great presentation. I'm very grateful, Pascal, for the webinar. Kathy Orr saying, little plug for our centre. We have a lot of reading material on our website. Thanks, Kathy and Bray. So that's
Perfect.
abebray.wix site. So ABE, Adult Basic Education Bray.wix site.com. So that's Kathy, or it's the Bray Adult Learning Centre. So it's Adult Basic Education Bray. Thanks, Kathy. Okay, that's it. The last few are saying thanks a million. These were great. So, Pascal, thanks for staying beyond the beyond. It's now nearly 5 to 3. So really appreciate that. You
Save the
had
trip going to Dublin.
well done, and you had answers to everything. I thought you would on a lower than you go. God, I don't know, but no, fair play. So really appreciate that. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. I hope you got something, you learned something, and listen, enjoy the rest of the day. Okay, Pascal, thanks again. Bye bye, everyone.
Thanks all. Take care.